Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from the high banks of Talladega Superspeedway as it plays host to race number 9 of the second season of the G4 Sim Racing 87 Cup Series. I'm Seth Cole, alongside of Anthony McCurry. And Anthony, I want to take us back to the first Superspeedway race of the season opener at Daytona, final lap, sixth place driver Rex, then comes around to pass the other top 5 that had wrecked to win the race. Talking about Cooper Johnson. It's more spacious here today at Talladega, but do we see the same type of scenario?
Well, the fact that this track is more spacious, these drivers are going to have a lot more room to work with. That's going to be beneficial to those drivers that, like we said at Daytona, they found themselves running out of racetrack really quick. You can get 3 abreast here and have it be a little bit easier than it is at Daytona. Do we see that at the end of the race? We got 80 laps to figure that out, but we are getting close to having the green flag, and I know that at least the driver of our Daytona winner, Cooper Johnson, at least he wants to get another win in the super speedway, but we've got a lot of drivers who are looking for another win, 19 in fact, that are looking for a win here at Talladega.
And of course, as we know as well, super speedways, you cannot predict who's going to win until a driver has crossed the start-finish line receiving the checkered flag. So some underdog stories could take place here tonight, and a driver that's in the field tonight making his debut, Kevin Dinovich in the 29, that might be the underdog story we're looking for. How about maybe winning in his debut race?
That would be good, and I mean, this is Talladega. Anything can happen. These are the wild card races that we see. That 29 car, he qualified 7th. Not, I mean, that's not indicative of where he'll finish, but a fast car, and these cars don't have restrictor plates, so you know he's going to go to the front and go to the front quick when he gets into the draft.
First time since Daytona, these drivers will have a fast repair at their disposal, but just one. They have one fast repair at super speedways, no fast repairs everywhere else. Let's see what's going to happen as 80 laps will determine the winner of the 9th race of the season. Peyton Hamlet and Jake Hounshell going to bring us down here to the green flag, and the Alabama 200 moments away from getting under the green. Remember, the start-finish line is down here towards turn 1. That extra 200 feet could be a big difference at the end of the night. Up through the gears they go. Green flag flies at Dega. I don't know if the 91 didn't get going or what there, Anthony, but Jake Hounshell around the top side powers to the top position.
Yeah, he wasn't waiting for anything. It's a straight-up rocket that he had out of the gate, and now he's got to open up a pretty big gap. He's got Harrelson right behind him now, and now to the outside goes Peyton Hamlet in the 91 trying to make some ground up, but on the inside, our pole sitter is going to try and get there and maybe stick it to the inside, and he does.
Keep an eye on the back end of these race cars. We know with the low spoiler, these cars are going to be loose. Right there, you see it. Was that Ryan Lutz, I think, in that blue and white machine on the top side. 3 wide with Seth Harrelson in the middle. Travis Braden on the bottom through the lightest portion of the track, the tri-oval.
Yeah, and there was a lot of drivers getting a little squirrely. They're 3 wide for 3rd place right now between Lutz, Harrelson, and now Braden on the inside, powering his way through on the 78 machine. Oh, there's contact between Lutz and Harrelson, and they're up into the wall. Lutz to the inside of the racetrack. That's going to be a caution.
And he collected up another driver as well. Might have been the 22. No, it was the 29 of Kevin Dinovich that got the 36 when he came back down the racetrack. Caution going to fly for the first time here tonight, and some of those hits say fast repair to me, Anthony. 2 laps in, you don't want to be using your only lifesaver.
Not at all. That was a bad thing to happen with some of the drivers behind, too. Christopher Morse Jr. was holding back, and there was a couple other drivers back with him, including Steinmiller, that were just holding back, but that was just a simple case of cars getting up onto each other, and there wasn't really anything you could have done to avoid that, save maybe go to the inside of the racetrack, but I don't think that Harrelson really knew that he had all that ground underneath him.
The 36 might have turned a little low as well, maybe to avoid getting tight off the corner and brushing the outside wall, and there you saw nowhere for Dinovich in the 29 to be able to go as the 36 just shot back across the racetrack, no warning whatsoever. as the 29 of Kevin Dinovich leaves the scene of the accident with the engine smoking. He's got two choices: either use the faster pair now, or more than likely spend anywhere from half an hour to 40 minutes sitting on pit road, letting that car get manually repaired. I mean, think of all the ground he would end up losing in that case.
I think this is a situation where you're going to have to use it, unfortunately. I mean, so early on in the race, we're working lap 3 now. He's still trying to get around this racetrack. He's on the back straightaway now. The car is still smoking. Hopefully he can get to pit road before that engine expires on him. But with that faster pair, it is a must-use situation for that 29. The debut is not what he wanted. This is... You never want to have to make your debut race one that you end up getting into a big crash. But thankfully, though, there was only 3 drivers that were involved. That happened at the front of the field. And as we know, Seth, at restrictor plate track, well, this isn't really a restrictor plate track in this series, but in these super speedways where the draft is important, it's difficult, extremely difficult for these drivers to kind of give each other room. And when you get a run on somebody, it's even harder for them to kind of figure out a way around them. And we're seeing now that could have involved so many cars, but only 3 to speak of with damage, and there's a lot of drivers on pit road.
Including Jason Houndshell, the 00, John Whitendorf, Anthony Guarneri, Bruce Pearson on pit lane, along with James Roth, and Christopher Morse Jr. in the 3. You've also got Carlson, Lutz, and Dinovich on pit lane. Obviously, all 3 of them down there, either for repairs or the faster pair, depending on just how much of impact their wrecks were. For Harrelson, I don't know if necessarily a faster pair is in order. I think with the shot that Lutz and Dinovich took, I think they probably would need to use their faster pairs, but then again, could be wrong, as looks like Lutz might actually be going for a manual repair. Kevin Dinovich did go for a faster pair on his 29 machine. Now, 19 drivers were scheduled to take the green flag tonight. Only 17 actually did. Gil Gawk in the 82 and Bo Caro in the 42 did not take the green flag to start this race. It looks like they'll be finishing with provisionals in 18th and 19th here this evening, as Jake Houndshell waiting for the lights to go out atop the pace car to give us the 1 to green signal.
Indeed, and we got Hamlet was able to recover from that start that he had earlier in the race. He's now going to be lined up in 2nd place, although that might have been benefit to the 3 wide battles that were going on. Speaking of battles that were going on, the race that we are in right now, it was chaos at the start of the race, but if you missed last week's race, it was chaos at the end of the race. We had possibly one of the closest finishes that I think we've seen in this series wholesale, and it came down to a 2-lap shootout at Phoenix. Picture this: we're in Phoenix, and you have the 2 most dominant drivers all day long, the 44 of Blaine Atkin and the 36 of Ryan Lutz. Now, those 2 have been duking it out all race long for the lead of the race, and it came down to strategy. And then at the end of the race, we got a 2-lap shootout. There was a crash on the front straightaway that involved our 2 leaders. Ryan Lutz got the benefit out of that. He was able to right his car and go forward quicker. And then it came down between him and the 33, I believe, of John Whitendorf to the end of the race, and a drag race nonetheless. Ryan Lutz did win this race. That was good news for Lutz. If you'll notice on the ticker, there's somebody missing from this race. Last week, Blaine Atkin, after that crash, we don't know what happened, but he hasn't made the start for tonight's race. He was the points leader heading into this race. So now the points battle is wide open going forward, and that's something that these drivers are eyeing here at Talladega. It's already a roulette wheel, but now you've got the points lead wide open, and anyone can grab it.
Yeah, we know that last week Blaine Atkin was obviously upset with what took place on that final restart. A little extracurricular activity between himself and Ryan Lutz at the conclusion of that race. And as you said, not in the field here tonight. It was only 7-point separation between Blaine Atkin and John Whitendorf for the points lead. Whitendorf in the field here tonight. And, by the way, the defending winner here at Talladega back in Season 1 of the 87 Cup Series. So big opportunity here for John Whitendorf to maybe not only pick up his first victory of Season 2, but also extend the points lead coming into tonight. If you went from Whitendorf back to his next source of competition, you'd have to go back 53 points to Gerald Campbell in the 31.
And it's even further back from Campbell back to Christopher Morse Jr., who lines up fourth place in the standings at this point in time. And then Cooper Johnson, our Daytona winner, he's fifth in the standings right now. So the points battle is really close between a lot of the drivers that have gotten a win or have had good finishes this season so far. And again, we speak to the driver of Cooper Johnson. He had that win at Daytona. He's been fast all of these weeks. He knows how to get around these tracks. He's just not been able to put together a closing run when he needs it. But today, like you said, it could be today that he gets another win under his belt, as he might not want to get it in the same fashion he did at Daytona, but he would love to wheel that 14 machine around as he does week in and week out. But we're about ready to go back to green here at Dega.
It's Jake Counshell, Peyton Hamlet, Travis Braden, James Goshen, and Jackson McLaren, your top five. Single file restart right up against the outside wall, so nobody gets a jump on you before the start finish line. You cannot pass to the inside before you get to the line. Now you can, since the leaders have crossed the start finish line, and someone's going all the way down below the double yellow line back there. I think that might have been the 36 of Ryan Lutz. Now that's another thing I failed to bring up. It's 87 Cup rules. The double yellow line is there, but it is not a line that you cannot go below. It is legal to pass down there, and Ryan Lutz using it to his advantage.
Especially down the back straightaway. You've got a lot of pavement down there that you can use to your advantage all the way almost into turn number 3 is where you can have it. In fact, it all the way is to turn number 3. So you could run right to the inside wall down the back straightaway if you wanted to. And I think that some of these drivers might have that in their arsenal for later in the race when they need to make moves happen. You saw Cooper Johnson get around Ryan Lutz. Ryan Lutz is dealing with some damage on his car. He did not take a fast repair. He is, however, soldiering on in the 8th position.
Oh, we got a spinner back there. I think that's a 29. He spun down to the inside. I don't think that will bring out a caution. He never actually looped it around, but he certainly was pointed in the wrong direction out of the tri-oval.
Yeah, he has got back going in the right direction. He's now coming out of turn 2. That was a wicked save on the part of Dinovich in the 29 car. Debut race and a great save. He's already been involved in one crash. He's used the fast repair, so you know that he does not want to get that car any more damaged because he does not have any safety net anymore. He has to go to the end of the race as it is. Peyton Hamlet at the front of the field has gotten back to the lead of the race, and back behind them, you've got Braden and McLaren battling side by side. Look at them drifting through the tri-oval.
Also, Gerald Campbell, he took a peek to the inside 3 wide, nothing doing. And you've also got that's James Goshen, the 85, also there in the 76 fuel machine. And you talked about the fact these drivers no restrictor plate, but they certainly aren't for want of draft and the ability to get runs. I mean, these drivers have been making moves up here in the top 6 alone, up on the top side all by their lonesome. They've been able to get so much momentum on the straightaways.
Yeah, and you're running in excess of well over 200 miles an hour. And if you get a draft, we've been seeing speeds from drivers that are catching up to somebody on the front and back straightaway. They're topping out at 221 miles an hour. I believe I saw somebody on the back straightaway that last time by. I think it was Gerald Campbell that might have gotten that kind of speed. So these drivers, when you're in the draft, it is quick. It's much quicker to be in the draft than it is to be at the lead of the race. Case in point, Peyton Hamlet and Jake Counshell have traded the lead a couple of times so far, and Hamlet almost traded it with the inside wall as he was heading straight for it, but a great save on the part of the 91. Here comes Campbell.
We got a bird's eye view of how loose Peyton Hamlet was as we were inside the 31's cockpit of Gerald Campbell. The thing, too, that I loved with that shot looking at the steering wheel of Gerald Campbell, it's almost like these guys are at a dirt track. That wheel is left, right, left, right, left, right when you're going through the corners.
And well over 200 miles an hour. This is kind of, we said this at Daytona, it was kind of like watching a dirt race, but at a super speedway. And again, it's happening here at Talladega, the low downforce. We're harking back to some of the things that we were talking about the first race of the season. It was the birth of the second race, or the second season in this series, and a lot of unknowns, but there were some knowns that we came into this season with, and that was that these cars are a bear to drive, especially at super speedways. No downforce whatsoever on the front end of the car, or very little at the very least. And on the back end, well, it's about the same deal. There's barely any downforce back there. Have a very low spoiler. These drivers are wheeling these things around, basically just forcing them to wherever they want to be. And the tri-oval is one of the worst places to be, as you see Hamlet kind of stepping out again as he's going down to the front straightaway.
I'm going to throw out a little bit of a conspiracy theory here. We ended up having, I think it was 6 or 7 drivers that stayed out under our only caution up to this point. Most everybody else came down pit road to at least take on some fuel. Now, I know that at most super speedways, you come down and you top off the fuel tank, so if you go into a long green flag run, you can spend a little bit of extra time out there if we go into a round of green flag pit stops. But I almost wonder as well if it's a strategy call of coming down, putting a little bit of extra fuel in the car, so that way you don't get the extreme loose sensation you're going to feel as that tank starts to empty. These drivers are already struggling for rear grip with the back end wanting to step out. You don't have to deal with the car getting light in the back as soon as some of these other guys up here who stayed out under that last caution.
That is exactly what some of these drivers might be trying to do. Someone on the inside wall, that's Travis Braden running the outside wall in the 78 car. He comes down to the racetrack now, but that is something that happens if the car steps out on you and you can't really save it. It's not that they're trying to get onto the wall. We've seen these drivers, they're flirting with the outside wall, getting as close to it as possible, but it goes back to what Seth was talking about. It goes back to your back end is so light that the car just steps out and you can't turn it back the other way because your back end wants to go to the outside of the racetrack. And those drivers that came down pit road, they do have the advantage of having more weight in the car. And usually you say, oh, there's more weight in the car, then that would make you slower. In this case, yeah, it would, but it would make you more stable going through these turns. And like you said, Seth, I think that's what a lot of these drivers were betting on. And certainly some of them have bet on, as a lot of drivers that did make that stop, they have been slower, but they've been much more stable.
Oh, based on how these drivers are slipping and sliding around, I guarantee you, if you went down pit road to each one of them and asked them which would you take over the other, speed or stability, they would all say stability in a heartbeat because they are sliding into these corners literally. Look at Peyton Hamlin. I mean, that thing, that rear end hanging out high, wide, and handsome every time he goes into 1 and 3.
You could basically call this a Formula Drift race with the way that these drivers are running right now. It's incredible to watch them week after week, but it looks like, I just was on board with Peyton Hamlin as well. He was slipping all the way through the tri-oval. Not anything that he could have done to avoid a spin if he had tried to, but he had to crank it all the way to the right-hand side to get the car to go straight. And we talk about how long these races are. These races are extremely long. These drivers are tired by the end of the race, so what we're seeing now, it's going to carry over till we get to lap 80. The fatigue will start to wear in. This is a bit of an endurance race.
Looking here at the weather conditions for the day as Campbell, I don't know if he just got loose or if he clipped the apron there into turn 3. That almost looped him around in front of Jake Hounshell, but 77 degrees, a beautiful 77 degrees down here in Talladega, Alabama, but the track temperature in the triple digits, 116 degrees, so that also would be a big reason why these guys are out there on what would technically be an ice rink.
They really want the clouds to stay in. As we see the clouds that kind of rolled in, they really want them to stay right now, especially Campbell. Oh, Hamlin got the outside wall. He's coming down the end of the racetrack. Almost got into, I think that was, who was that on the inside? That was Goshen on the inside that almost got contact, but he's okay. Up in front of them, we got a 3-wide battle momentarily for the lead, and I think that was Mclaren that was on the inside of the line of the racetrack, almost on the apron going through turns 3 and 4.
You can see the damage there on the right side of the 91 of Peyton Hamlet, our pole sitter, pretty extensive on the right front. Got to wonder how that's going to affect him here for the remainder of this run. Obviously not going to be quite at 100% in terms of aerodynamics, but I don't know, maybe even just a minor hit like that based on the fact there's no restrictor plates and you don't have to really be all that track reliant. That was Braden. He's going to get spun in front of the field.
And he's going to go around and around and around on the back straightaway. And that's going to be our second yellow of the night. Although I think that it was relatively isolated with just Braden.
It was Peyton Hamlet that got into the back of him that hooked him around. And I think you're right. I think everybody else did a great job of getting around the spinning machine of Travis Braden. Second caution of the evening here on lap 16. We'll go back to turn 2 and see exactly what happened.
I think what we're going to look at here is we were talking about getting loose off of the corner exit. These cars have been getting loose off corner exit at every track we've gone to, and this is no exception. I think Braden just got a little bit, maybe a groove too high, and went straight into the outside wall, and then collected Hamlet a little bit on the corner exit.
Now, he did get somebody there. It was an orange car. I couldn't tell exactly at the time who that was.
I think that's a 3.
Is that Morse Jr.? I think you're right. Yeah, the Wheaties car.
Yeah, that would be a more. He did come in. I don't know if he made a lot of contact with the certainly the way that the 78 started spinning. It might have been ever so slightly, or it might have been a little bit of netcode that sent him around that violently. But I don't think that Morse has got too much damage.
No, even with that onboard there, I think he may have narrowly missed it. If he did hit the 78, he brushed him. And I mean brush in the smallest sense of the word, because that was really close. So tremendous job there by Christopher Morse Jr. not making that a bigger wreck than it very well could have been. Pit road is open, and I think it's feeding time at the zoo.
Yeah, these drivers really need tires, and I think the crew chiefs on the wall have been saying the same thing. Come down, we gotta get 4 tires, not necessarily because you need them, but it's because you need them. This track, we don't normally see tires be the talking point of a super speedway, but especially at this race, it's going to be the talking point, and also fuel for these drivers. We're not really sure how long you can go on a fuel run. I'm confident it could be longer than 17 to 18 laps, but everyone on pit road, it looks like we've got everyone taking 4 sets of tires and fuel, save for maybe the 3 and the 85 as they come off pit road first.
I think they may have gone with the 2 tire strategy. The 22 of Bruce Pearson never even came down pit road, and with the angle here on the pit road exit, it looks like the 91 Repulsor Peyton Hamlet may have used his faster pair right there.
He might have. Certainly that car looks much more pristine than it did a few laps ago, coming out on track. Now, if he didn't use a faster pair, that was an extremely fast job by his pit crew in order to get that fixed. But given the fact that he came in around the 4th place position, is now coming out, and that car looks brand new, I would dare say he's used it. But again, it goes back. Do you use it this early? Is it worth staying on pit road and getting the damage repaired so you can at least train around the racetrack, and then when it matters, get the faster pair to fix your car up so you can compete for it? Or do you think track position is really going to be king all race long? Because we've seen a couple drivers, not in the case of the 29, he was kind of forced to use it, that being Donovich. He was forced to use it, but some of these other drivers, such as Lutz and Harrelson, they haven't taken their faster pair yet, and they're running at the back of the pack just buying their time. These strategies, what do you think is the best one?
Well, I mean, here tonight, in this race, as opposed to last season, it's a catch-22. Because last year, at the super speedways, they had 2 faster pairs at their disposal. So you could go out there, be aggressive early on. If you got involved in a wreck, all right, you can use your faster pair and then save one for later on in the race. We kind of have had 2 different events take place here in just the first 18 laps alone. We've had an early caution in the first 2 laps, and then we went green for a 15-lap stint. So, you know, for some of those guys that have the damage already back there, that haven't used their faster pair, it's kind of the strategy of, well, do I use my faster pair now and expect that we're going to go long green flag run, possibly to the end of this race, or with this being a big 2.66 mile super speedway, do I just try and run this thing out, keep my car on the lead lap as best that I can, and then if a late race yellow comes out, then I can come down, have my car at 100%, and try competing for this win? I mean, with the fact that already we've kind of had a bit of unpredictability in short run and long run, I'm not necessarily certain. I'm glad I'm up here in the booth and not down there in the car having to make these decisions of when do I want to use that faster pair.
It's certainly, these drivers have to be their own crew chief in a sense, because they more than likely they don't have anybody that's coaching them along, trying to give them the best call. So they're having to play both sides of the fence. And right now we're seeing a mixed bag of strategies, like you said, and it's kind of cool to watch these drivers, how they process the way the race develops over time, and it's leading to some very interesting racing going on. Our leader was 22 momentarily. He's actually given up the lead and is now going to fall into the hands of James Goshen, who a few laps ago, I don't think we were even talking about him battling for the lead, let alone the top 5, but now here he is, fastest car off of pit road. We believe he only took 2 tires. Something else that was interesting, Christopher Morris came back down pit road. Not sure if he was getting more damage repaired, if he was getting his fuel topped off, or if he was serving a penalty, but there was a lot of other drivers that went down with him, including the 63, 78, and 33.
Christopher Morse would have rolled off from second place on this restart after the 22 hit pit lane, but giving up that good starting track position will now move Gerald Campbell to second, Jake Hauschel rather, now in third, Peyton Hamlet with the benefit of the faster pair and the number one pit stall fourth, and Jackson Mclaren will be fifth. All 17 cars that started this race still running, still on the lead lap. Right now, 2 drivers we know for certain have used their faster pairs, the 91 of Peyton Hamlet and the 29 of Kevin Dinovich. Still uncertain about other drivers, but we're going to try and keep as best we can our eyes peeled as to who still has a faster pair left and who does not. We're almost a quarter of the way through this race as James Goshen going to lead them down at a snail's pace of 65 miles per hour headed for the restart zone.
You say snail's pace, that's interstate speed in a lot of states. It's kind of crazy seeing these drivers go so slow around this racetrack, but you can tell he's leaving a lot of room on the outside, but it doesn't seem to matter. He caught everyone sleeping. Green flag back in the air, and it's got him about 2 car lengths back to Campbell, which is about 2 car lengths back to Hauschel and Hamlet. A great restart by the 85 and the 31 respectively.
Keep an eye on third and fourth, though. Hauschel and Hamlet. We know that at super speedways, you really need to have an ally. And the 0291, ever since the drop of the green flag, seemed to have a system worked out of swapping the lead back and forth. Big run for the both of them here on Goshen and Campbell. Nothing Campbell can do to defend the run of the 02.
And on the outside line, here comes Hauschel and Hamlet. Whoa, Hamlet, I think, might have ducked down to the inside of the racetrack. Not because he wanted to, but because it was the only way to stop his car from spinning around as he took an evasive maneuver down to the inside line. Now back to the outside, getting some draft off the 02. Now back to the inside line. He's just kind of floating around, trying to figure out where he can go. Side-by-side battle at the line was won by Hauschel. So that's indicative of what we could see at the end of the race. That might come down to a last lap pass.
Looking right now at our top 5, and 3 of them are looking for their first career victory here in the series. Mclaren, Hamlet, and James Goshen. Mclaren now going to push Gerald Campbell to the point, but you see him blink there for a brief moment, so that's a couple of seconds of draft that Gerald Campbell lost down the back straightaway.
It is indeed. Now he's kind of gotten back into the footing. He's now ringing around the inside line, trying to get clear of the 02. A little bit of a wash up by about 2 of the 5 drivers in here. Somebody that's made his presence known in the top 5 now is the 7 of Jackson Mclaren. Not really sure where he came from, but he was a rocket coming down the back straightaway a lap ago, and now he is fighting for the lead of the race, trying to get down the inside of the 02. Right behind of Campbell. This is somebody else that's looking for their first win of the season, and he's had a pretty good showing so far this season, week in and week out. He is one of the most consistent drivers that we've seen, constantly in the top 10. When is the 7 going to get a victory in this race or in this season? Could be tonight.
Absolutely. An average finish of 10.4 for Jackson Mclaren. 1 top 5 and 3 finishes inside of the top 10. He's 13th in the point standings coming into tonight's race. And to your point, if he wins here tonight, could very well be peeking up into the top 10 in the standings heading into next week. Now, the top 5 have broken away. You got to go back almost 1.2 seconds to find Jason Hauschel, who's all by his lonesome. But he's about to have company because a second group is forming with James Roth, Kevin Dinovich, Travis Braden, and Christopher Morse Jr.
And they're trying to run down this lead group of cars. We saw Mclaren do it by himself. Whoa! Roth off of turn 2. Almost spun it around, and he almost brought Dinovich with him. That could have been disastrous for both of them, but they was a fantastic save on the part of Roth. But we saw the 7 do it by himself. Now we're seeing what happens when you get a bunch of cars together, and they're training up towards the front. You can see Goshen, or not Goshen, make that Hauschel. Hauschel is trying to catch up to the back end of the 85. He's got their draft. He is now closing at a significant rate, going down the front straightaway alone. James Goshen running around 208 miles an hour through the tri-oval, and Jason Hauschel was running a full 215 miles an hour going through the tri-oval, and through the turn, still running a few miles an hour quicker. Back to Dinovich, same story, as long as he doesn't spin going out of turn 3, or make that turn 2, as he almost came out of turn 2 facing the inside wall.
You know, a lot of times drivers that are looking to make their debut in a series, Dinovich, He's gonna get into Travis Braden there in 3 and 4. Caution's gonna fly. Oncoming traffic, more drivers collected. Pearson's in the air. Guarneri's in the air. Morse Jr.'s collected. It's the semi-big one, I guess you could call it, here tonight at Talladega.
Cooper Johnson's also involved. Ryan Lutz was involved in that one as well.
All right, I changed my mind. It's the big one. It's not the semi-big one.
It's a very big one. There, I can count at least 8 cars involved in that crash. Maybe even more were involved that have already left the scene of the accident. Guarneri and Lutz now trying to train away. I think that's Harrelson on the outside line. That's also slow as well. That was disastrous, and that happened almost in succession with what we saw him coming off of turn 2. Going into turn 3, he just lost it on the inside of the racetrack.
Morse Jr., Roth, Cooper, Johnson. That's at least 9 that I've been able to count here that were involved in this one. And a tough debut for Kevin Dinovich. The engine expired yet again on that 29. He already used his faster pair on an incident back on lap 2. This is pretty much his day over, and we haven't even reached the halfway point.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for the driver of the 29. Never want to have your debut race be the one where you remember DNFing from it, but this is a tough track, and these are tough cars. I'm not sure what his experience with these cars are, but you can't fault him for having something like this happen. These are some of the toughest conditions that you're going to race on oval racing in general. It's something that not a lot of drivers are prepared for. These cars were absolute weapons, and you put them on tracks where you're running over 200 miles an hour with no downforce. Stuff like this is going to happen, and I'm almost convinced if the 78 of Braden hadn't made contact, we might be looking at a car that didn't spin around, but as it goes, a lot of cars went around, and it was just a chain reaction. People trying to brake, trying to avoid it, not really anywhere to go, and then the cars came back up on the racetrack.
I was really hoping when I saw that 29 down there on the inside, I was really hoping that maybe, just maybe, he'd keep it down on the apron, but that left rear quarter panel came back up onto the racing surface just above that double yellow line. Braden was running the inside line, and so the contact was made and just nowhere for this oncoming traffic to go. This is on board with Cooper Johnson. Up and over in the air. He and Anthony Guarneri both going airborne here in 3 and 4. Undoubtedly, that's got faster pair written all over it for both of those drivers. Matter of fact, I'd really be surprised if there's any drivers that were involved in that wreck that would not have to use a faster pair, because a lot of those hits were high impact.
And there's a lot of damaged cars that are having to come down to pit road, and except for some of the drivers that have already used their faster pair, I would imagine that everyone's going to. Although I say that, Cooper Johnson's got an extended stay on pit road at the moment, has not left his pit box yet. His engine wasn't that damaged, or at least it didn't look like it was, so he's still on pit road. There's a few other drivers that are on pit road. Dinovich, obvious reasons why he's still on pit road, doesn't have another faster pair to use. Ryan Lutz now coming off of pit road. I don't think he used a faster pair. I think he might have used one earlier. Maybe he did use a faster pair, because that 36 looks pretty clean. And Travis Braden still on pit road. Don't think he's using a faster pair either. I think the 22 of Bruce Pearson is coming out. I don't think he was involved in the crash, but he was also on pit road for an extended point.
Bruce Pearson, I checked back. I thought he was the red car that went up into the fence. And when I checked back later, it was actually Cooper Johnson went up in the air. You're right. Actually, Pearson was quite a ways back, about half a straightaway back behind that wreck. So everything settled out by the time he came up on the scene. Going back real quickly there to the 29 of Kevin Dinovich, and you touched on too, not really certain what the experience he has here with these 87 cars, but a lot of drivers will, look at a league and they'll say, oh, there's Daytona, there's Talladega. It's an easy track to be able to adapt to, be able to learn the racing style of everyone around you. And so they'll end up joining at a super speedway. But when you consider the way that these cars are at Daytona and what we've seen here at Talladega, it's not necessarily a walk in the park if you're a debuting rookie.
Not at all. And these are the cars that you don't want to debut in if you're getting into racing stock cars. And again, not really sure what Dinovich's past with iRacing is, but he picked one of the harder ones to come to tonight. And again, no faulting him for something like that happening. I'm sure that I would do the same thing if I tried to drive these cars. These cars look like they're a beast to drive. And to your point, Seth, You see Talladega and you think it's easy, but as we've seen tonight, nothing's easy. Not even running by yourself is easy around this 2.77 mile racetrack. The longest of our ovals this season, not the longest track we'll be going to. That honor goes to Elkhart Lake, which we'll be going to for the penultimate race on the season. That's a well over a 4-mile circuit, but this track is the fastest. Hand over fist, 210 plus miles an hour consistently, and we're seeing just some of the ruins of some of these drivers that have had to experience what a crash feels like going at 200 miles an hour, and it's not fun. I wouldn't want to wish it on anybody.
Not at all. Kevin Dinovich still sits on pit road. But of the drivers that were also involved in the wreck, all of them have returned to the racetrack, all on the lead lap, with the exception of Cooper Johnson. He is currently 1 lap down. But bear in mind, if a caution were to come out, he would get the lucky dog. So Cooper Johnson's one of those drivers that falls into the category we were talking about earlier, Anthony, of if you get involved in a wreck, do you just try and repair the thing best you can, try not to lose too many laps, save the faster pair for the latter portion of the race, and just try and minimize the damage in terms of laps lost during the course of the remainder of this race leading up to the end. So we'll see if it works out for a Daytona winner.
It might. His car was extremely damaged at Daytona when he won the race. A lot of the drivers across the line, that they were damaged as well. A green flag came out very early this time around. Gerald Campbell decks to the inside of the racetrack, taking a little page out of Blaine Atkins' book of kind of diming it on the restart, and he's got himself a pretty big gap back to Goshen and Houndshell, who battle for second place. That was one of the earliest restarts I think we've seen tonight.
Well, bear in mind, it is iRacing restarts where as soon as the pace car darts onto pit road, the leader can go. So basically from the start of the tri-oval to the start-finish line, it's a very big area for the driver to choose where the acceleration point should be.
Just as long as you don't pass the pace car before the start-finish line, which at Talladega is obviously waived a different rule because start-finish line is beyond the pit wall. So,
oh, Goshen! Up there and into the wall, moves from second, now falls to fifth.
That could have been disastrous again. Goshen's having some struggles with that 85 machine. And a lot of drivers we've seen kind of track up to the outside of the racetrack, especially coming out of turn 2 and the tri-oval. But Goshen seems like he's had it under control all race long, but that one could have been 85 heading straight into the infield, and that could have been disastrous. It could have been another yellow for these drivers.
Gerald Campbell, so far this season, 1 trip to victory lane, had multiple wins during the second half of last season's 87 Cup Series, and you kind of got the feeling if he had run all the races, it may have been a really good battle between himself and the defending champion, Christopher Morse Jr., now running full-time this season, and came into this race third in points. We're going to kind of move him now to second in points with Blaine Atkin not in this race. 53 points behind John Whitendorf, and you have to think now Gerald Campbell, seeing that it's just one driver between him and the points lead, got to be licking his chops and eyeing Talladega here tonight as a chance to cut that points lead in.
Indeed, so he might not be able to take the points lead at this race because Whitendorf, even though that he's not had a fantastic run up to this point, he is still in the top 10. He's running 6th place at the end of this little train here. He's running right behind Steinmiller, so those drivers, knowing that Campbell has to make up a lot of points, it is a bit of a mountain to climb, but he is leading the race right now. Whitendorf hasn't been able to get to the front of the field as of yet, so a little bit of a one-upsmanship on the part of the 31 machine, and he's been fast all season long. Like you said, he's got a win so far this season. He's led a good amount of laps. He's led 154 laps this season, so he's got the experience out front. He's just got to put together some wins, and he's had consistently one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. He's been in the top 10 and the top 5 a lot this season, so good head on the driver there, and he might be able to pull one out here. I say that he's going to lose the lead to Campbell and Houndshell on the inside line.
Someone had a moment there off turn 2, was really low in the back straightaway. I think that might have been the 07 of Seth Harrelson. Keeps it straight, keeps it going. We stay under the green flag. Mentioned that last season these drivers were here at Talladega. 5 of the drivers that finished in the top 10 are in the field here tonight, including the defending winner, Ryan Lutz. Ooh, there's a couple lanes down there apparently on the apron as he's going to get on the brakes to make sure he gets back on the track safely. So nice job there by Ryan Lutz to not collect any other drivers up there. But John Whitendorf, the defending winner of this race, is in the field. Hank Steinmiller, the runner-up, also. Chris Morris Jr. finished 4th here a year ago. Jake Hounshell 6th, and Seth Harrelson in 10th. All those drivers here in this race, so they're still running. They're still on the lead lap. And trying to see if they can keep the good numbers going here at Talladega. One driver who will not get the finish he was looking for is going to be Travis Braden. He just brought his car to the garage area. Looks like he'll finish 16th place here tonight.
That's a tough break for Travis Braden in the 78 car. He might end up. I don't think he'll be finishing 17th tonight because Dinovich hasn't gotten back on the racetrack, and unless he does get back on the racetrack, don't think he's going to be passed. So fortunately, a 16th place is going to be what is the 78's fate tonight. Not really sure why he went behind the wall. He was on the racetrack, albeit not very up to speed, but he could have made some laps, and if something happens in the field, like Hamlet spinning around in front of the field, he could have made up some positions. That could have taken out a lot of lead lap drivers.
No doubt about it. He was in the middle line. They almost were going to split him 3 wide with how much momentum he lost there, being sideways in the entrance of turn 3. Now it's going to be Hounshell and Campbell that will jump up to the outside of the 91. Heart-stopping moment for us up here. I can only imagine what it was like for second place on back.
Everyone looking at that white car kind of sideways. You're not supposed to be able to see the left-hand number panel if you're going in a straight line with each other. That's something that you never want to have to look at, and that was what everyone second on back was looking at, the bright red 91. So good heads-up driving by everyone behind to get off the throttle just enough in order for Hamlet to catch up, and good on Hamlet for being able to save that spinning car. These drivers are some of the best that we've seen on iRacing. They know how to wheel these machines around, and we said that a lot at Daytona when we were watching them drift around the high banks in Florida, where it is something that is kind of magical to see these drivers really be able to sling these cars around and be able to keep going without having any major incidences. And so far tonight, if I'm not mistaken, and it might just be because the track's wider, maybe I'm saying this, but it seems like these drivers have been able to keep it a little bit cleaner than at Daytona. That being said, that might be due to the extra lane that you have at this racetrack as opposed to at Daytona.
I mean, one thing that we definitely saw at Daytona as well, drivers enter low and the car wants to drift up to the outside line. And we know that Daytona much narrower. It can hold them 4 wide, but usually it's more comfortable to be 3 wide. Talladega, you can run them 4 wide, no problem. There's plenty of room. So to your point, with having that extra lane as a bit of a cushion to lean on, drivers then able to give each other a little bit of extra room for the necessary drift up through the center of the corner. Now, I was watching there as we were on board with Jackson Mclaren, and you can see sparks that are coming out from underneath of these race cars. Obviously, I would assume that's probably either the splitter that's dragging at the front of the car, maybe the side skirt on the left side. How do you think that affects the car here, especially through the corner as they're Jake Hounshell with a near moment there and a great save?
I was about to say something about Jake Hounshell if he came across to lead the lap, but I'm not going to now because I think the commentator's curse hit Jake Hounshell telepathically. That was incredible. What I was going to say is Jake Hounshell hasn't led a lap this season until tonight, and I don't think he still has led a lap this season after what happened. But yeah, the sparks coming out, that could very well be the front end of these cars. The left side particularly, it sits much lower than the right side of the car does. So getting into some of the bumps down in the turns, sending some sparks up the side skirts also, that can upset the car. And that might have very well been what had upset Hounshell as he was on the way spinning, facing the wrong direction. But thankfully, everyone is okay. Jackson Mclaren coming off of turn 4, leading them down to the line. And if I'm not mistaken, also, McLaren hasn't led a lap. Well, he's led 50 laps. Never mind. I was going to say something, but he led a lot of laps in Atlanta. So he's got that up on everyone else in the field.
we had two great saves during this green flag run. Houndshell, the latest of those, he's fallen back to 10th. The other one was Ryan Lutz. He's now fallen back to the 11th position, but both of them still on the lead lap, albeit now part of the group that would love to see a caution just not be that yellow flag. And up at the front, look who's made an appearance. Seth Harrelson, who we saw wrecked with Ryan Lutz back on lap 2, he pulls to the outside of Jackson Mclaren for second place.
And I got those two drivers mixed up. It was actually Seth Harrelson that's led 50 laps so far this season, and it was Jackson Mclaren that didn't lead any laps, so he's got at least one lap led here tonight. So, but yeah, to your point, Seth Harrelson coming back from that earlier incident now shows himself in second place with a dominating car. At the moment, he's been able to pick them off and put them down as much as they need to. Oh, a little bit of a bobble into the wall, and now he's up into the wall, spinning down the back straightaway. That was a commentator's curse.
Everyone scatters to the inside. Plenty of room on the apron to avoid Seth Harrelson. When we go back and look at this replay, I know it's Talladega, but based on how these cars react, not necessarily certain the 91 gave Harrelson the necessary room going into the corner.
I don't know. He got really close to the back end of that car, and I'm trying to see if I can find an angle that sees if there was any contact between those two drivers. I think the air just got let out from underneath the 07. I don't think there was any contact made.
That's a good call. We see right there from that camera angle, he got on the apron, got loose, and just spent most of turn 2 trying to recover it up. There was no contact between himself and Peyton Hamlet, so I was just going based off that one camera angle. The multiple camera angles show the different story. Tough break there for Seth Harrelson. Second time that he's pancaked the right side of that machine and brings out the caution for the fourth time here tonight, right at the halfway point.
And that is, again, you feel bad for Harrelson, but that's just Talladega. That's something that we've seen tonight, hand over fist. Good on Hamlet for backing off, though. He saw that happening in front of him and was able to back off and try to give Harrelson some room to save it. And he did. He almost had it saved, but he tracked up the racetrack too much and ended up flat ironing the right side of the car. So you almost think that, Seth, I know it's easy for us to kind of watch the race happen and not really be in the car with these drivers, not really know how the car's feeling all race long. But when the car starts breaking off like that and going at the outside wall, it's almost like there's nothing that they can do about it. And we're seeing a few drivers that have tried to, but it doesn't seem like it's worked out. Well, what do you think these drivers are experiencing when that happens? It's got to be a little bit of a sense of helplessness for some of these drivers.
I agree with you. It has to be, because it's kind of between rock and a hard place. We saw when we were on board with Gerald Campbell how he's turning the car left, right, almost like you would do with the front tires at a dirt track to make sure that the thing stays straight, if that's possible with these type of race cars. But if you turn the car hard to the left to try and save it, there's no doubt about it, that car is going to snap around and you're going to spin the thing out. Car's drifting up the racetrack, you can't turn it to the right because that's just going to help it go up to the outside wall. So yeah, it's just a case of do the best you can of trying to keep the car pointed in the right direction and pray that you don't hit anything.
A bit of a doomed if you do, doomed if you don't kind of scenario that these drivers find themselves in week in and week out. And, I mean, these, again, we've said it a bunch of times, and we're going to keep saying these are the best drivers that you'll see in the 87 cars that at least I've seen in the 87 cars. And they put on a show every week, and sometimes they get it wrong. But that is what these cars can do to some of these drivers. And these drivers get tired throughout the race. And I don't think any of these drivers want to drive this long, but we're just now halfway. We took the green flag around 9 p.m. We are not quite an hour into the race. We're just over halfway. So this race is taking down pretty quickly as opposed to some of the other races that we've had. Certainly last week at Phoenix was one of the longer ones we had, not because there was a lot of cautions, but just because the track was relatively slow with these cars and they had a lot of laps to run. Tonight, we're taking them down pretty quickly. We're already working lap 41, almost to lap 42 out of 80. Whitendorf, Steinmiller, and Ryan Lutz is in third place. What a comeback.
Interesting strategy here by John Whitendorf, however, as he has been out there for 16 laps and might be coming to pit road this time. Of course, the defending winner of this race, so no doubt about it. He probably went back into last year's playbook, tried to figure out what his strategy would be here tonight, and he's going to come down pit lane. So, the question here is, was staying out to lead a lap get a bonus point because he hasn't led a lap yet, or to be one lap better on fuel than the rest of his competition? Not sure. Would have loved to have been a fly down on the wall of the pit box there.
Not really sure what the fuel run for these drivers can be either. We've seen cautions come out about 18 laps into a run, so I would imagine that these cars can go longer than 18 laps. I would imagine they could probably go at least 25, maybe even 28 laps at the very most. So I think that we're going to have one more stop in this race, but Whitendorf puts himself in a position where if it does go into a bit of a fuel saving mode, then he can have the option to save a lot more fuel than some of these other drivers and have that little bit of extra weight in the car that we've been talking about since the drop of the green flag, where a little bit more stability in that 33 car might make it slower in the long run, but it will be more stable, and you won't have these hair-raising moments that we see coming out of turn 2 and 3, or turn 4 rather.
Driver got the lucky dog under this caution was Cooper Johnson. So of the 16, or make that the 15 cars that are out there on the racetrack, all 15 will still be on the lead lap. I was noticing the 29 of Kevin Dinovich still sits on pit road, is not retired out of the race, and the one thing that I actually did remember that I actually said earlier was if your car has an engine issue but is still running, it is repairable, but you have to spend about half an hour to 45 minutes on pit lane getting those repairs done. With Travis Braden out of the race, Kevin Dinovich could possibly get the repair done in time, get back out there, and complete the 7 laps necessary to finish 16th in his debut.
That would be valuable points heading towards the end of the season. He came into the season a bit late to make an impact in the points lead, but he would make a lot more points if he finished that one. Even that one position, you'll make up a lot of points with the old point system. So something that he knows. And Travis Braden isn't doing particularly well in the point standings either. And I'm looking through to find where he is, where he's mired in the point standings. I believe he is. I can't find him for some reason. I'll find him and get back with you on where he's located in the point standings. But we're about ready to go back to green. Steinmiller now puts us under green with Ryan Lutz right behind. We're back to green, and Seth, again, a good restart, but that's not going to last for the leader.
Absolutely not. Hank Steinmiller finished less than half a second behind John Whitendorf last season at Talladega. Wants to finish one position better here tonight. Ryan Lutz and Gerald Campbell, they're going to be lined up nose to tail. 2 cars make much faster lap times than one. And there's company on the back door of the 63 before they even get to the 3rd corner.
And right now, here comes Lutz. We saw him spinning around earlier in this race, and now he's going for the lead. This is the driver with the 2nd most laps led this entire season. He came in a couple races late to the season, so that just shows you the amount of dominance that 36 car has shown since his entry. Gerald Campbell coming right behind him, one of the only of the drivers that have won a race in the top 3 right now, as you've got Mclaren right there on the inside line trying to take 2nd place away. And here comes Anthony Guarneri in the 16 as well.
Anthony Guarneri, who we saw up into the catch fence in the middle of 3 and 4 during our 2nd caution of the day. Now rebounding up inside of the top 5. Guarneri 7th in the point standings coming into tonight's race. 146 points out. And while that might seem like an insurmountable lead, bear in mind, as Anthony touched on, it's the old point system. So a couple of positions can gain you anywhere from 30 to 40 points.
And that is important for drivers such as Gerald Campbell. He knows it, and he knows just how far back the interim points or the future points leader is right now. Our points leader, John Whitendorf, he's going to be back in 15th place. In fact, he's still on pit road. There's been a problem for the 33 car.
Just came down pit road, I think, as he's only scored -1. I don't know if this is a unscheduled stop or what's going on with the 33. Oh, got a car wrecked! That's Jackson McLaren. He gets into Ryan Lutz. Caution's going to fly as a couple of cars spin down to the inside in the back straightaway.
It looks like that McLaren has gotten it back going the right direction, and so too has Lutz. That could have been much worse. That's a phrase that we've said all night long. It could have been much worse.
John Whitendorf got it refired off pit road back onto the racetrack, only lost one lap, so talk about situations working out for the defending winner. He'd be the lucky dog driver.
Yeah, that's good news for him. He was about to go 2 laps down. That would have been bad news for the 33 machine, and thankfully, like you said, this caution did come out at the perfect time, and I'm looking at it. I don't know if there was any contact or not, but McLaren got a little bit of help.
Campbell pushes up the track. You're right. Definitely a little bit of help there for McLaren. Ryan Lutz nowhere to go. A little bit of front end damage on his 36. Fortunately, the 7 spun down to the inside wall, so it cleared the track up high for everybody else to make their way around. And it brings out the 5th caution of the evening. And the funny thing about it here too, Anthony, something that we talk about all season long, and it's even taking place here at Talladega. Nowhere seems to be safe for these drivers. We have seen all season long wrecks take place at the rear of the field, middle of the pack, and even up at the front of the field. And that was a 3-wide battle for the top position that brought out the 5th yellow.
Yeah, it was. And we saw a crash almost happen at the front of the field earlier when you had the 91 almost spin around and take out everyone behind him, but he was able to gather it up. So, like you said, it really doesn't matter where you're at in the field. It is going to be a bit dangerous on this racetrack, no matter how you slice it. Going back, I'm trying to find out what happened with John Whitendorf, and I think his problem started at the restart. There was a little bit of a jam at the beginning of the run, and he might have got some front end damage. And I think he spun the tires at the very least, and then I think he got Oh yeah, I see exactly what happened. Harrelson in the 07 braked. Kind of brake checked in the front of Whitendorf, and he got quite a bit of front end damage on that 33 car, so he came down to get it repaired. So that is why the 33 was on pit road for a short time, but thankfully that yellow came out just in the nick of time to save him from going 2 laps down.
Front end damage can actually lead to water temps rising rapidly if you've got damage around the radiators. That might have been why Whitendorf thought it the prudent thing. Come down pit road, get that damage repaired, and as we mentioned, a godsend of a caution here for him because he only lost 1 lap, and with this yellow flag, he will be back on the lead lap in the 15th position. Caution out for the 5th time tonight. We are more than halfway through this race. We'll be restarting, closing in on 30 laps to go when Gerald Campbell receives the 1 to green from the iRacing Pace truck. We're going to step aside, though, for a quick commercial break, and we'll be back here to try and take you to the checkered flag at Talladega, race number 9 of Season 2 of the G4 Sim Racing Hijinx Clothing Cup Series.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
It's a road few dare to travel, a journey filled with danger and unpredictability. So why do we traverse this road? Why do we take such a gamble? Because if we don't try, we'll never know what we could have achieved. That's why we strap in, rev up, and fix our focus on the ultimate prize. Because the reward is well worth the risk. The 2021 NNSCRA Daytona 500, Saturday, February 20th, exclusively on Flatout Racing Network.
ETE Reman is the world's best remanufacturer of transmissions for import and domestic cars and trucks. Based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our customers are repair shops, auto parts stores, dealerships, and distributors. And with 6 nationwide warehouses, we're where and when you need us. So when you're looking for a transmission that is like new, only better, instill confidence and install ETE Reman.
Green flag back in the air here at Talladega as Gerald Campbell gets us back underway. 32 laps to go at Talladega. The field spreads out, but not for long.
Yeah, we've seen tonight where the leader will get a big lead at the beginning of a restart, but within a couple of corners, it's all closed back up, and now Anthony Graneri is the one running down our leader, Gerald Campbell. Graneri right now is running about 5 mile an hour quicker than our leader, and you got James Goshen behind him that's running just as quick coming up on the back end of that 16 driving what I think is probably the coolest scheme that we've seen tonight, that 76 scheme that Goshen is running. Kind of a bit of a throwback to some of the old 76 schemes that we used to see back in the 80s and 90s, so nice to see a bit of a paint job throw around that we've seen tonight.
Saw right there the closing rate a driver can have if he's got a drafting partner. Houndshell to the lead, looking back to the guy who pushed him there, the 91 of Peyton Hamlet. Gerald Campbell looks to the inside, says, no, I'm going to take this top position back.
You can see what fresh tires do for a driver as well. These drivers have been able to really hold their own and really pick where they want the car to go at the opening stages of a restart. But as we've seen all night long, that will fade away to the inside. Look at the power move by the 16 of Graneri. The inside of the racetrack takes him 3 wide. Can he get the lead coming out of 4? He's going to have help behind him. But on the outside line, Houndshell's just as strong.
Houndshell's got Hamlet with him, Campbell on the bottom with Graneri. James Goshen might be the X factor right now, depending on which line he decides to give his draft. Then he got a heck of a battle back there for 6th place. Ryan Lutz with a bit of a slide job through the tri-oval on Jackson Mclaren.
And Mclaren and Lutz trying to find their way back to the front of the field. They have it kind of was involved in that last caution that brought out that got them a little bit more damage, but Lutz and Mclaren have been able to get back going the right direction, and now finds, I believe that was Harrelson that was spinning around the back straightaway. It was one of the 2 black 7 cars, but Ryan Lutz certainly with some damage, still wheeling around this track. He's got no damage.
Also got a couple guys back there that are just at the tail end of this group. That's Harrelson, Steinmiller, and Jason Houndshell in the 00. Don't count any of these guys out. All 15 cars that are running are on the lead lap, and if our last super speedway race at Daytona taught you anything, it's never ever expect who's going to win this race until all is said and done, because Cooper Johnson, who won the Daytona race, was wrecked. Literally wrecked over in turn 3, recovered the race car quickly enough to be able to pass the rest of the field that had wrecked off of 4 and was able to pick up the checkered flag. So with that extra 200 feet down there in the middle of the tri-oval to where the start-finish line here is at Talladega, Anthony, I mean, that itself alone could play into who's going to win, who's going to finish second, as Lutz has powered back to the front.
Yeah, Lutz was closing in pretty rapidly, and he was able to put down 3 or 4 drivers in the matter of 1 lap, and he's now leading the race yet again in that 36 car, but he's got company. He's got Jake Hounshell to the outside. Peyton Hamlin, which I have no idea how he's still going in the right direction. He was wrecking loose throughout the entirety of those last couple of laps. He's now trying to get to the back end of the 36. We're getting pushed by Gerald Campbell on the inside line. Oh, again, sideways. Oh, we got sideways move for our leader as well. They're all going through there with the back end dipping out to the right side, but they've kept it going the right direction as Granary and McLaren fall back to 5th and 6th.
Couple of other drivers that have now latched on to the tail end of this group. The 37 of John Whitendorf, who got the free pass under that yellow flag, and James Roth in the 4. These 12 that are all lined up nose to tail now, when we took the green, were separated by about 5 seconds. That shows you just how quickly the group can close back up, and it's not even really with the aid of draft. Got a car on the wall back there on the back straightaway. That's Goshen. He kept it straight. Everyone gave him the room, no caution.
Yeah, everyone's getting around him on the inside of the racetrack. Goshen's got back going the right direction. So, no harm, no foul for the driver of the 85. He's lost a lot of time, but he will be able to make that up by the end of the race. I've noticed somebody who's hanging back at the back of the pack, just kind of minding his own business. Actually, a couple drivers that are doing so. They're not necessarily damaged, but the 4 of James Roth and the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. have just been content to run outside the group in front of them and just kind of running their own race. I think that's veteran move on the part of both Roth and Morse, as they know that if something happens in front, they've got plenty of run up in order to slow down and avoid it. They don't want to be battling in the midst of all those cars right now. You still got a long way to go. We're only on lap 55.
That's incredible how one season can change the course of how you'll approach a racetrack. Last year, whoa, Campbell loose there while he and I think that was Hounshell were close to each other. He saves it, but going back to Morse, last season at Talladega, Morse wanted to have his car up in front. He thought that was the safest place to be. 1 year later, he's riding at the back, thinking it's the safest place to be. And of course, for James Roth, he's trying to pad his statistic. Right now, the driver with the most top 10s to start out the season, 8 in total. You have to go then to John Whitendorf second with 7. So right now, James Roth trying to keep that statistic and keep that 4 at the top of said statistic with top 10s this season.
That's consistency. If anything else, it shows that you can be consistent. And it's not just he's been finishing 10th all those races to get accredited to top 10. He's had some pretty high finishes. I think he's finished as high as 6 at one point in time. So he has got the speed in order to make these top 10s consistently. And like you said, just keeping his car clean. He knows that he can wheel around the track when he needs to. We saw him battling quite a bit in the opening stages of the race. Is kind of doing what Morse Jr. is doing right now and is just riding along, seeing how the race develops over time. He's got a bird's eye view of everything in front of him, so he knows what those drivers can do. He knows their racing style, and more importantly, he's scouting out what he can do to make his move later on in the race, knowing how they'll react to somebody being on the outside, the inside, 3 wide, even 4 wide. So, bit of a scout going on with the 4 and the 3 right now.
Spoiler alert, the 91 was loose off of turn 2. Are we surprised? No. Peyton Hamlin has been wheeling that machine. I'll tell you what, though, you have to have that car on the edge of out of control, and I'm almost looking at this 91 machine who's trying to find his first win of his career. He could be a guy that we could be talking about at the end of the night taking this checkered flag.
Yeah, he's been fast all night long. Pole sitter of this race, has shown speed. He's been able to carry over from practice and qualifying. He's got a bit of make that right side damage on his 91 car. You see the right front is missing a bit of an end plate, so it's got a little bit there, but you couldn't tell it. He's driving it like it's not damaged, and I think that it's going to be a bit of a shock if he comes down pit road, and I think he's got a faster pair.
Oh, man!
Holy cow, what a save! That could have... Oh, he's still wrecking! Can he save it? He saves it again!
How to bring it back up safely here. That's Hank Steinmiller that was to his right. He is safely up there. Oh, contact up there for second. McLaren was dead into the left rear quarter panel of Jake Hounshell. I thought the 0-2 was going to get hooked. Somehow they're able to separate and nobody gets spun.
And now everyone goes to single file racing. They were battling side by side about 3 or 4 rows deep. Now, kind of sensing a bit of the danger. We saw that 91 almost took everyone out. So it's kind of time to relax. I say that. Campbell's not wasting any time. He's going to the inside of Hounshell. I believe Hounshell actually tried to make the move on the outside of Lutz. But lost a lot of momentum when Campbell came to the inside. Lutz has been able to wheel this car around this track, and no one's been able to really mount a charge for the 36 car. You think he might be able to figure out how to get around Talladega?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ryan Lutz has been really good at the heavy braking zone tracks so far this season. 3 victories, his latest at North Wilkesboro. He, of course, won as well at Richmond. And then, in between those 2 wins, he won at the worn-out track of Atlanta. So it seems like he's very good at the tracks where grip is not necessarily at an ultimate, and also where you have to do a lot of heavy braking. Well, you don't necessarily have to do a lot of heavy braking here, but there certainly is a lack of grip.
Absolutely. We saw last week at Phoenix, he was able to really wheel that car around and make it wherever he wanted to and put it wherever he needed to. And doing the same thing here tonight, except not really having to use the brake all that much at this racetrack. And he hasn't had anybody to drag race down to the start-finish straight yet. Although, give that to the end of the race, and you're going to have about 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10 cars drag racing down to the finish of this race. Houndshell is still being hounded by Jackson Mclaren, which is something that I don't think we would have said. Mclaren was the center of everyone's attention, spinning around earlier in the race, but now battles to the inside, trying to take second place. Gerald Campbell, who's been at the front pretty much all race long, is now trying to wheel his way back. Does he make it 3 wide? Thinks better of it. And now you've got a side-by-side battle for 5th place, which is between Seth Harrelson and Jason Houndshell, which has made an appearance into the top 10.
Yeah, his brother Jake's been up here in the top 5 all race long. Jason waiting a little bit longer before making his appearance up here towards the front of the field, but has kept himself out of trouble really for the majority of this race as well. Kept that car relatively clean, and now up here when it matters as we're at less than 20 laps to go. Saw with this cloud cover that you touched on, Anthony, wondered if that's been affecting the track at all. We started with 117 degrees of track temperature. Oh, Houndshell, hang on to it, buddy. He's down on the apron, keeps it straight. I don't know how these guys aren't spinning out. The fact that they're able to keep the thing still going amazes me. But going back to the temperature change, we're down now to 109 degrees temperature of the track. So obviously a little bit cooler, but that's on the case of there with Houndshell. I don't think it's done anything in terms of helping these drivers with grip through the corner.
No, it's almost kind of made the track a little bit worse than some of these drivers. And now, that being said, Houndshell has had some back-end damage on that car since the earlier parts of the race where he got ran into. So there might be a little bit more aero damage on that car than we would see on these other cars. And that will affect your car, especially if it's at the back end. If you've got that splitter or that spoiler at the back of the car hanging down any lower than it already is, you're basically just hoping that you throw the car in and it sticks. And these drivers, oh goodness, there was almost contact between Jake Houndshell and Ryan Lutz. Lutz, this is the first time he's really been challenged for the lead of the race ever since ever since he got to the lead of the race. Now to the inside, he's going to get freight trained. I was going to say that, but Harrelson is now going around, and he saves it.
What a tremendous save by him and Gerald Campbell, who was sideways. Both of them able to gather it back up. And yeah, that's Jake Houndshell battling for the race lead, folks. The guy that I said was spinning off of turn 4. I apparently can't read driver numbers. It was actually Jackson Mclaren who had the save off of turn 4 there. Houndshell now on the back bumper of Ryan Lutz. So that's what, 6, 7 saves that we've had now? 7 potential cautions that have not brought out a yellow?
Something like that. These drivers have been able to really use the apron and the banking at this track to their advantage. A little bit more banking than at Daytona. So once you get the car sideways going to the inside, there's a bit more leeway that you can have at the outside of the racetrack in order to catch these cars. But what I'm more impressed with is the fact that they've been able to do this at all. We've seen speeds well in excess of 200 miles an hour.
Car in the wall back there. I think that might have possibly been James Roth.
He's slow.
Everybody scattered to avoid him. Yeah, I think he might have gotten the wall there off of turn 2. A couple of drivers had to take evasive action to avoid him, including the 3 of Christopher Morse Jr., but we'd still stay under green.
I just looked back at it, and he got a little bit out of the groove and did slap the outside wall, but he has gone and is still running on the racetrack now in 12th place with quite a bit of right side damage on that 4 machine. So He was in the top 10. Now he's got to claw his way back up. But it's the way that these races have gone, the trend is that we have a late race caution at some point in these races. And I don't think the trend's going to break, especially when you got drivers battling for the lead like that. We saw Hijinx get a little bit of contact with Lutz going down the back straightaway. There's still contact going into the turn, and Graneri almost snaps loose.
15 laps to go, and debuting Kevin Dinovich is coming back out on the track after spending nearly 40 minutes on pit road getting the engine repaired. Looks like he does have enough time to pick up 16th place here tonight over Travis Braden. There you see him entering back on the track in the middle of 1 and 2. Up at the front, the battle is on for third. Campbell on the top, Hamlet on the bottom, and that's going on behind your top two. You've got Jackson Mclaren looking on the 5th position. Yeah, Mclaren, who was wrecking out of turn 4 practically about 10 laps ago.
He's got a good recovery drive going on right now, trying to get to the outside now of Hamlet, but Hamlet just a little bit too in front of him, and now they're going to single file out going down the front straightaway. This is something that these drivers might want to consider doing until they get to about 5 laps to go. They want to jeopardize their cars too much. In fact, Hamlet's already put his car in a lot of stress. He's still got a lot of damage on the right side of the car. Whoa, the outside wall is Hijinx as he was trying to go around Lutz. He got a piece of the wall, but now he's going to fall back. Lutz has been continuing to lead the race. He hasn't really been doing that much defending. He's just been having drivers behind him have some misfortune.
Gerald Campbell was going to go with Hijinx on that top side. Fortunately, he spotted when Hijinx got the wall, was able to split 3 wide. Otherwise, if he got in the back of the 0-2, he might have had a caution. Campbell loose there in the 4th position. Went from high to middle in the span of a couple of corners.
Don't look now, but look back and look at the 33 of Weidendorf. He's made his presence back into this group of cars. He was one of those drivers that had to come down and make an unscheduled stop for damage repair. He's now back trying to get within this group, back on the lead lap. He's got a fast 33 car.
And that bright orange Wheaties number 3 of Christopher Morse Jr. also looms at the tail end of this lead group. So these guys up in the hunt. You got Hank Steinmiller, last year's runner-up at Talladega, also in the mix. So keep an eye on those guys because apparently it's not go time yet, but certainly they are there when necessary.
They are willing and ready. Whoa, Hamlet and make that Mclaren get a little bit of dodginess out of turn 3, or make that turn 4. That could have been a little bit argy-bargy down through the tri-oval, as there was almost contact between Hamlet and Harrelson that time through. That could have been disastrous.
You start getting nervous when there's not a lot of room between one driver's side door and another driver's passenger side door. These drivers trying to side draft, if side drafting really does come into play with these 87 cars, as Campbell's now been able to work himself back up to 2nd place with Ryan Lutz. Now bear in mind with Ryan Lutz, last week heading into that Phoenix race, he and Blaine Atkin were the only 2 multi-time winners on the season, both with 2 wins. They were trying to figure out who was going to be the tiebreaker. Lutz, with the win last week, is now looking for his season-leading 4th victory and his first back-to-back victory here this season.
Yeah, he's going to try and wheel it around. I think that he'd be the first time to get a back-to-back victory so far this season, as Atkins' wins came a couple weeks apart from each other. All of Lutz's wins came a bit separated from each other. So actually, no.
Peyton Hamlet.
He saves it. Question mark. He does. Whoa! But make that Campbell didn't save it. He's spinning down the back straightaway.
Caution is out for the 6th time this evening with less than 10 laps to go. Oh boy. Well, I think it's safe to say, Anthony, if you had a faster pair to use, now's the time to use it.
It is crunch time. We're within 10 laps to go, so you got to lay all your cards down on the table. It is the end of the race, and especially when we go back to green. We're only going to have, I think, 6 laps to go when we go back to green, maybe 7. So you're not going to have a whole lot of time in order to make any moves, let alone get the move done. And I don't know, this might not be the last caution we see. We only have 1 attempt at a green-white checkered, but this might not be the end of it.
Campbell making the move on the top side of Seth Harrelson for the race lead. Had Ryan Lutz behind him and just found no grip on the high side off the 2nd corner. Little moment of silence there for the commitment cone coming off of turn 2 as it got completely punted out of the way by Peyton Hamlet after his tremendous save. But now things get interesting because all 15 drivers that were running are on the lead lap, so nobody gets the lucky dog. Nobody's going to be forced to start the tail end of the field. And if you got a faster pair and are able to use it, we could have all 15 cars under a blanket here on what is potentially our final restart.
Yeah, that could be something that I know a lot of drivers at the back of the pack are going to be looking at to try and get around the outside of the racetrack. You can make passes on the outside of the racetrack before you get to the yellow line. So do you think we're going to see some dive bomb, or not really dive bombs, but you think we're going to see some drivers really try to get the jump on these leaders at the end of this race? But we got cars coming down pit road. Now everyone on pit road. No one's willing to take a chance with old tires. These are going to be some of the fastest speeds we're going to see all night long, and I think we're going to see some pretty good-looking cars at the end of this stop cycle. A lot of cars going to have some faster pairs, and a lot of tires going to be changed. Hamlet, first pit box, hits his marks. Looks like extended. He's getting right sides now. I don't think he's using a faster pair, though.
He may not be. That right side damage still looks like it is there. Try and see if we can kind of pinpoint some of these drivers as they come off, see if their cars look same or different. Yeah, there was no faster pair for Peyton Hamlet.
Certainly not for Harrelson either. He's still got damage on the back end of his car.
Looks like Ryan Lutz still has some damage on his machine.
Granary, that 16 car.
I think he used a faster pair back when he visited the 3 stories of the catch fence back during the second caution.
That car looks pretty pristine, though. I would imagine that. I mean, he's kept his nose clean since then, so that might be good for him. Whitendorf looks like he might have used one. I don't think there's a scratch on that car from my angle, although now I think I see a little bit of damage on that 33 car. Certainly, Hamlet still got damage, but yeah, I don't think he really minds it too much. I think he prefers going sideways through these turns.
I think Gerald Campbell may have used the faster pair there under this caution.
Ryan Lutz definitely has damage on the front end of his car. It wasn't slowing him down before. Don't imagine it's going to be slowing him down at this stage in the race. And I want to touch on Ryan Lutz. He is a back-to-back winner so far this season because he won at Richmond and then won in Atlanta the following week. So a multi-time winner in that regard for Ryan Lutz. A back-to-back winner in that regard for Ryan Lutz. So we're going to
trying to go for his second set of back-to-backs.
Yeah, second set of back-to-backs. This winning at Arizona and then taking the win here at Talladega. Gerald Campbell, the reason for that caution is going to restart 10th if nothing changes. He's also looking for his second win of the season. He won back at North Wilkesboro in 3 weeks ago. So he's looking for another win so far this season, and that is all the drivers that have won a race except for Christopher Morse, who is running at 8th right now, looking for his second win of the season. Former champion Christopher Morse Jr.
Right now, of our top 10 for this restart, 3 are former winners this season, and 5 are looking for their first win of their career here in the Vintage Cup Series for G-Force. Talladega has been known to cater to the underdogs. Could it be setting up to do the same thing here tonight and give a driver their first career win? Seth Harrelson, the race leader, fits into that category. He has been strong all season. His qualifying efforts have really been the shining performance out of this 07 team. He's tried to follow it up with good finishes, but it's been kind of up and down, which is why he's mired 12th in the point standings. But that could all turn around here tonight if he can pick up the victory in the Alabama 200.
Indeed, it could for him, as well as Jake Hounshell in the 02, looking to get his first win on the season. He's another one of those drivers that have been consistently in the top 10, has kind of been slinking around through the top 10 week in and week out. But Jake Hounshell does come into this race 8th in the standings, and he's not that far away from the likes of Anthony Granary and Hank Steinmiller, to which are right now Granary is one position behind him, and Steinmiller finds himself about looking through here, he's actually running 15th on the racetrack right now, so he's got a long way to go in order to make up that position. So if all goes well, Jake Hounshaw might be able to leapfrog at least one position tonight and get about maybe 7th in the standings when we go to next week's race. So there's a lot of drivers. We can just name a couple right now. Granary is one of those. Peyton Hamlet, McLaren. Those are drivers that are in the top 10. You could even go back to Jason Hounshaw. Those are drivers in the top 10 that are looking for their first win of the season. Some of them, the first win in their career in the 87 series.
We know that after tonight, we will have a new points leader going into Charlotte next week. Looks like it's going to be John Whitendorf. The battle right now for the points lead between himself and Gerald Campbell, with Campbell being involved in that latest caution. He's going to have a little bit of work to do to cut into that points lead Whitendorf would have over him. Green flag back in the air, and things looked a little messy back there around the midway portion of the field. While they got things settled out, the top 6 have scampered away.
They have. They've gotten into a train going on the inside of the racetrack, trying to get away from those drivers that are trying to make up ground behind them. But now here comes Lutz to the outside as they go down the back straightaway. We've got 6 laps to go, make that 5.5 when they get to the middle of the back straightaway. So if you got to make a move, it's now crunch time. These drivers know it. The race is coming to the end. Whoa! There was contact between Hounshaw and Lutz. Lutz almost went to the outside wall, but he saved it. Now to the lead goes to 0-2.
Hounshaw almost went down below the yellow line, which is legal. Lutz threw the block on him, and Hounshaw was having none of it. Set the 36 up the racetrack, says, hey man, you've got 3 victories. I want my first one this season, and I want it more. He's going to go to the point. Granary, who was 3 wide down the back straightaway on that restart lap, now up to 2nd. And Peyton Hamlet back in the conversation again. He's now 3rd.
Pole sitter Peyton Hamlet trying to wheel his 91 around the racetrack. The only car in the field that's not a Chevy Lumina. He's trying to figure out a way to get around the 2 in front of him, but he's darting to the inside, to the outside. He's got Lutz making an advance behind him. Lutz trying to make a recovery drive from that bit of an incident that he had coming into turn 3 just a couple laps ago. Now, to the outside, he's been able to try and do it by himself, although he's got the 33 of Whitendorf also behind. The bridesmaid from last week.
We were almost 3 wide in 2 portions of the field there through the tri-oval. Hounshaw out in front. Battle for second. It's really loose. Another car loose back there in Harrelson. I think both of them managed to save it. No! Harrelson up the track. Collects Jason Hounshaw and Gerald Campbell. Caution flies with 4 to go.
Well, Campbell's flipping up into the air. James Roth came in and made some contact. And almost collected Bruce Pearson at the end of it.
Gerald Campbell smoking on the middle of turn 1. There is what remains of James Roth's machine. And Seth Harrelson in the 07 was the car that all started with. Came back up the track. I think it might have been Christopher Morse Jr. that he made the contact with that spun him around and collected up a number of others back behind. And Gerald Campbell, that could be his race over in terms of winning, as I'm almost fairly certain that after he brought out the 6th caution of the evening, he had used his fast repair. Certainly not what he wanted to have happen about 5 laps later.
Not at all. And this was something that really couldn't have been avoided. It was these drivers are battling for the end of the race. They're battling for the win at this stage in the race. And we saw that Lutz had the same thing happen to him just in front of these drivers. Harrelson, again, was trying to wheel it through the tri-oval, the lightest part of the racetrack. He might have gotten a little help from the 7, though. It looked like kind of that McLaren was pushing through the tri-oval, and that might have been what snapped him to the inside of the racetrack. But he made that save, and then when he was trying to merge back onto the racetrack, there's just nowhere to go. And he kind of came up a little bit too quickly, in my opinion. I think he could have backed off a little bit, but you're going for a win at this point. You don't want to back off. You can't back off, but Gerald Campbell went for one heck of a ride after Roth came in and scooped him up.
Another driver that took a hard lick there, as you see the airborne 31. That's not a DeLorean going back to the future, pun intended. But also Hank Steinmiller hit Seth Harrelson a ton in the 63, so extensive contact to his machine, and he's actually brought his car now to pit road to get repairs done. And Now it comes down to the question of, on that last pit stop there, Anthony, if drivers did have a faster pair and used it, how many of them were caught up in this incident, and how many's hopes of winning this race were just dashed in the span of about 2 laps?
I would imagine that Gerald Campbell's one of those drivers that might be in that position, although he hasn't come down pit road. He's still in the trial. Well, he's wheeling it around the racetrack right now. Don't know what the 31's doing. Certainly, I don't think he's seeking revenge right now. I think the engine just let go on him, though.
I think it did too.
That's the death sentence for the 31 machine, and I don't know I don't know why it didn't come down pit road. I mean, certainly if it was a blown engine, it was done for anyway. I guess he's just trying to finish trying to get it on the racetrack, now going to the inside of the racetrack. I wonder if he was just trying to run the laps and see how long he could last, but he's pulled it to the inside, and that is night done for Gerald Campbell. He was looking to stay right with Whitendorf in order to be 1-2 in the point standings. I don't think after tonight that's going to remain the case. Other drivers on pit road. Looks like you've got the 4 of Roth. Looks like the streak is going to come to an end tonight for top 10s for James Roth. That being said, the race isn't over. There is still plenty of time for some crazy things to happen. And so too is, I believe that is that's the gray machine. That's Hank Steinmiller. He's on pit road. And Seth Harrelson is also on pit road. Those 4 have not yet left. Tough break for all of those drivers. At the very end of the race, that is not at all where you want to be sitting at.
Looks like we're going to have 12 drivers that will settle this thing out. We're still waiting for the lights to go out top the pace truck. We are going to go into overtime, our only green-white checkered finish of the evening. Of course, if these drivers do not make it back to the white flag, if the caution comes out, field is frozen, race is over. Leader at the time will be winning the race under the caution flag. If they get back to the white flag, it's race back to the checkers no matter what. And of course, as we mentioned, with it being 1987 rules and that double yellow line not really being a factor, that could make things very interesting on the final lap. It's Jake Hounshell leading them down. He's been up in the front all day long. He started on the outside of the front row, led the first lap, and obviously would love to lead the most important final lap. Anthony Guarneri has had to overcome adversity. At one point was airborne over in turn 4. He's second. Peyton Hamlet trying to do one of the toughest things a driver can ever do, and that's go coast-to-coast pole to win at a super speedway. He's third. Ryan Lutz, another driver that's had to overcome adversity over adversity tonight. He's fourth with the defending winner of this race, John Whitendorf, right there trying to go 2 in a row at Talladega to complete your top 5.
And don't look now, but Cooper Johnson is running in 8th. Very similar position that we saw him in at Daytona, where, oh, by the way, he won the season opener. So don't keep your eyes off that 14. These definitely not done. And if these drivers in front have anything happen to them, especially after they take the last lap, it's race back to the line. I wouldn't be surprised at that 14. He might not get a win, but he is looking at getting a top 5. That 14 is bad fast. Also, Christopher Morris Jr. kind of lying back there. We saw him laying around, just waiting for this race to develop. He's going to line up 7th place on the restart, and he's also got himself a pretty fast 3 machine as well. You could almost say he's had his Wheaties this morning for breakfast.
Absolutely. He's the breakfast of champions, the defending champion. You've also got Jackson Mclaren there in 6th. He's been up in the top 5 a good portion of the day. And James Goshen's also made a couple appearances inside the top 5, restarting in 9th. All these drivers still have a shot. It's actually 11 drivers to settle it out. They had Gerald Campbell scored ahead of the leader because he teleported to pit road on the front straightaway when the field was on the backstretch. So here we go. 2 laps at Talladega. This is what it all comes down to. Can Jake Hounshell hold them off, or will anybody in your camera shot right there be able to find victory lane? Next flag ends the race, whether it be the caution or the white flag, coming down here for a green-white checkered finish in the Alabama 200.
That's a long wait by Jake Hounshell. He does not really want to get going now. Finally, through the gears, we see the engines come to life, going through the front straightaway. Houndshell gets a good run away, but Granari's not letting him get too far away. I think that's the closest gap we've seen at a restart so far tonight. And he's got Peyton Hamlet, the pole sitter, coming right behind him as well.
Based on what we've seen here tonight, is it going to be driver versus driver or driver versus car into who's going to win this race? These machines have been a handful for every driver in the field. Guarneri down below the yellow line. He's going to look for the top position. Hamlet's going to go down there with him. 16 is going to go to the point.
And Granari is going to clear to the inside of the racetrack, so he's got no one up to his outside, although he's got the O2 of Houndshell right there. Whoa, there was a bit of a bobble for the 91 of Hamlet. He's snaking his way down the tri-oval, but he saves it. Coming down to the line. They're almost 4 wide. Hamlet goes around, but they've taken the white flag. No caution.
And now they're rubbing doors. Lutz into Guarneri, sends him up the track. Lutz gonna go to the point. Now it's gonna be, I believe that's Jackson Mclaren side by side with Whitendorf for second. Here comes the defending winner, Talladega. He's got Christopher Morse Jr. with him. Contact between the 33 and the 7 down the back straightaway.
And now the defending champion trying to go around the outside of the racetrack. Granari and Lutz to the inside. Whitendorf to the outside. 2 by 2 down to the turns 3 and 4 for the final time. Coming out of the front straightaway. Who gets to the line first right now? It's Lutz with a car length.
Whitendorf with a big run, though, through the tri-oval. He's going to get alongside. Guarneri forces the issue 3 wide. Here we come to the stripe. Who is going to get it? Whitendorf goes back-to-back at Talladega.
And Whitendorf wins the race, wins the drag race this week. Last week, it was Lutz versus Whitendorf at Phoenix. Lutz got the better of it. Tonight, Whitendorf gets a one-up on Lutz, and now the score is settled between the two of them. We're at 1 apiece.
I'd have to check back. I'm pretty sure it was 22 one-thousandths of a second last week, Lutz over Whitendorf. This week, almost same situation, 24 one-thousandths Whitendorf over Lutz.
That was incredible. Another drag race. 2 drag races 2 weeks in a row for the end of the race. This time, though, goodness gracious, it was 3 wide coming through the tri-oval. There was contact between Granari and Lutz, and I want to bet that if there wasn't contact between the 16 and the 36, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them might have gotten the edge over the 33, because Whitendorf was left out high to dry. There was no way, no help on the outside of the racetrack, nothing that he could have done to defend on the inside line. They had some drafting partners, but he somehow, some way pulls out an outside line victory here at Talladega.
Well, John Whitendorf was going to inherit the points lead tonight heading into Charlotte no matter what. He is going to extend that points lead here this evening with this victory, his first of the season, his second at Talladega Superspeedway. And to give you an idea of how close the photo finish was amongst the top 3, 44 one-thousandths of a second between Whitendorf, Lutz, and Guarneri.
Even back to 4th place, you've got Christopher Morse Jr. in that same argument. He finishes 96 one-thousandths of a second back. So you can put a little blanket over all the top 4. And Cooper Johnson, he might not have won this race. He got to 5th place tonight. A fantastic showing by our Daytona winner at Talladega.
We're going to show you the full finishing results in just a moment, but we'd be remiss if we didn't go back and look at that incredible finish. Anthony Guarneri actually went up and over after crossing the start-finish line for his troubles, but I was really wondering what was going to happen between the 36 and the 16 nose to tail off of turn 4, because remember, just a couple corners earlier, Lutz forced Guarneri up the track, but Guarneri saw the door open, he moves to the inside line, and just look at this coming down to the start-finish line. That's how close it was, folks, for the victory here tonight.
That's a fantastic image that you see on the screen. That's amazing. That's Talladega. If you need any reference image, if you're telling your friends or explaining to them what is Talladega, that is the picture you show them. That's what Talladega is all about. Fantastic race. There's a race of survival down to the end of the race, and you got some of these drivers that were just kind of hanging back at the back of the pack all night long. In the case of Christopher Morse Jr., we didn't see him in the top 5 until the very end of the race, where he gets a 4th place. Ryan Lutz was wrecking earlier in the race, and he somehow pulls out a 2nd place finish.
Unbelievable here at Talladega, but did we expect anything less? As here is the full finishing results from this evening's festivities. You've got guys like Bruce Pearson that was able to pop up late inside of the top 10 to get 8th place. Jason Hounshaw, who was involved in a late wreck, was able to rebound for 10th place. But the two drivers that kind of the spotlight is on right now, based off of the fact there's going to be an extended points gap going into Charlotte with Whitendorf winning, and then you go down to find Gerald Campbell, who finished 4 laps down in 14th position. So there's going to be some breathing room for John Whitendorf heading into next week.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have a bit of a reprieve going into next week. Now, we've seen a close-knit battle for the points lead between him and Blaine Akin, especially coming out of Arizona. But now, going into next week, he's, like you said, he does have that little bit of breathing room where he can make a mistake. He can afford to make a couple of mistakes and still kind of come out on top points-wise in the next race. But you don't want to ever have to be in that situation where you have to say, I need that bit of a reprieve. But John Whitendorf, your new points leader, caps off tonight with a win. That is a statement win. Knowing that the former points leader, Blaine Akin, didn't make the start of tonight's race, smelling the opportunity, takes the win, and extends his now points lead going into next week's race at Charlotte. That is going to be pretty good for him. And I imagine that Charlotte's one of the tracks he's pretty good at as well. So might be seeing this a double win 2 weeks in a row.
You talk about a statement win. Of course, coming in the defending winner, it's tough enough to try and defend a victory you had 1 season ago. But not only that, I don't think John Whitendorf led a lap under green flag conditions until the last lap. He led a couple of laps under pacing when we were under caution, but I think that was his first green flag lap led, and important one. That's the one you got to lead to be able to make sure you're going to be the one going to victory lane. We're going to talk with John Whitendorf in just a moment down in victory lane, but let's talk with the other drivers that were involved in that 3-wide photo finish as well, and we'll kick things off with 3rd place finisher Anthony Guarneri. Anthony, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRN booth. You got us?
Yeah, how's it going?
Wow. I mean, first off, thank you for giving us that exciting finish. That was incredible to call, but I can only imagine what it was like down there in the cockpit of that number 16, coming down there side by side with 2 other competitors. Did you think you had him, or did you have to wait to see the telemetry at the end to know who got it?
Oh, I had to wait until the end to see. I had no idea. I don't know if you saw there, but I went up and over. I don't think I lifted until the car was off the ground. Couldn't really see there. Really hard to make that car stick on the bottom there, and got a little bit loose. Maybe if I had slid it, I would have had a chance, but still great finish, I guess.
A great finish and a great drive. You were able to wheel this car around the racetrack better than a lot of drivers tonight. The track and the car combo we've seen tonight, it was almost like watching a dirt race, sliding through the tri-oval, sliding through the turns. How was it driving these cars around Talladega? It didn't look easy from the booth, and I imagine it wasn't easy behind the wheel.
Yeah, this track is a lot harder, or this car on this track is a lot harder than most of the other series, so you got to let off the throttle a little bit. I was going into the corners really easy all night, so I wouldn't get too loose, and seemed to pay off. A lot of these other guys would run full throttle for the first 4 or 5 laps and kill their tires, and then they're all over the place for the rest of the run.
All right, so Anthony, we knew that you guys had a faster pair that you could use here tonight. We were talking about, the strategy of when to use it. Your hand was kind of forced when you visited the catch fence up there in turn 3. So from that point on, how difficult was it to kind of strategize, make sure you kept that car in one piece to be in the conversation at the end?
I just tried to stay in between the front and the back pack the whole time, keep my eyes open, just not run too hard. Did get lucky there a few times. I drove through a few really close wrecks. I was lucky that I didn't have to go down pit road again and fix any damage.
Well, congratulations on a tremendous performance there, Anthony. Almost pulling out the victory, 44 1,000ths of a second, and an unbelievable finish here tonight at Talladega. Congratulations on a great run overall here tonight, and we're going to now give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, thank you guys. So I just want to give a shout out to my website, simhelper.com. It's sim-helper.com. If you have a league and you want to keep track of your score, or you want to register for a league, you can check that out. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
That's Anthony Guarneri, third place here tonight in the Alabama 200 at Talladega Super Speedway. Once again, congratulations on a great run, and we look forward to seeing if you can carry this momentum into the D-shaped mile-and-a-half track of Charlotte next week.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be talking to you guys again next week.
Let's see if we can get last week's winner in a photo finish at Phoenix, this week's runner-up in a photo finish at Talladega. That's Ryan Lutz. Hey, Ryan, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, man.
Wow. I mean, wheeling it doesn't even describe what you guys were doing out there today. But you were the race leader there on that final lap, having to kind of hold these guys off. How difficult is it to defend the run with these 87 cars?
Really difficult, man. The run comes so fast, and the bumpers don't line up as well. So, if you get a bad angle at pushing someone, it's not good for the rest of the field. And I don't know, it's just trying to do what we can there and not wreck the field. I blocked John down the back there. It's pretty good, and I figured if the 16 would just push us through the tri-oval, we'd get to the line first. But when he hit me, it upset my car so bad on the bottom. I got loose there, and I knew John was going to win the race. But it was an awesome finish. I'm happy for John. He's a good dude, so he definitely deserved it.
You find yourself in a drag race, not 1 week, but 2 weeks in a row. Last week at Phoenix, you found yourself in a drag race with the driver that won tonight, John Whitendorf, able to pull out this time. But I asked Guarneri earlier tonight, the track and the car were kind of a bear to drive. What was it like wheeling these cars around? Because we saw drivers getting loose in the tri-oval when the air would get into the car. So what was it like having to muscle these cars around all night long?
That's why I do G-Force. I love these vintage cars. I love turning dead right down the trail like I was doing a couple of times there when I got shuffled out from the lead with 5 to go or whatever. I came through the tri-oval, and I really thought we were done. I thought I was self-spinning through the front stretch, but luckily we saved it. And it's always fun. It's very difficult when you get someone pushing behind you, and it really upsets the car a lot. And I know once we got in clean air, I was really good at controlling the air. It seemed like, and really. That last 20 lap run or whatever it was, we were really good. And I knew when the caution came out, we would just have our work cut out for us, and it was an awesome finish. So I can't be mad at all.
Now, Ryan, when we rode on board with a number of you guys here tonight, we kind of saw it was almost like driving a dirt track for you guys, turning the wheel to the left and the right, trying to keep the back end planted, but keep the car facing in the correct direction. How difficult is it to kind of prioritize keeping your car underneath you while at the same time, 3 and on some occasions we saw 4 wide racing here at Dega?
Yeah, you just got to be smart about your moves and timing your moves right. And a couple of times I got a massive run on the leaders and didn't time my move right and about spun out going to the lead. And it's just really about timing those runs. And it's definitely difficult to go side by side. It's not easy, and it makes it. We probably make it look easy because it's a good group of guys, but it's definitely difficult, and you just got to use your head and know when to be on someone's quarter, when to be on someone's door, going through particular corners, and really just be smart racing.
Well, Ryan, you came into this race 181 points out of the points lead. Still a long season to go, so by no means are you out of the championship picture. A win last week, a runner-up finish this week. Obviously, looks like you've got some good plans heading down the home stretch here. Do we see you put this 36 in victory lane multiple times here before the season's out? And do we see you in the championship conversation? Is that the goal?
Yeah, we dug ourselves a pretty big points hole. In the beginning of the year, it didn't go our way, and you can bet I'm going to try my hardest to win every race and run in the top 3 and hopefully have a shot. Hank hired me, in this deal to win championships, so that's where we're. That's definitely in our mind, and that's definitely the goal. So this is one step closer. We led a lot of laps today, and had a good result. So it's just chipping away at it, man.
A good result. He indeed had. Ryan Lutz, your second place finisher here tonight at Talladega. Congratulations, Ryan. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you, sponsors, and shout outs.
Just thanks to you guys at Flatout. You guys do an awesome broadcast. It's a lot of fun to look back and watch them. My girlfriend, she's always watching. Chris Delbeck Racing, he's a big supporter of mine. Badfield podcast with Damian Leininger, Hank Steinmiller with Country Road Motorsports. Really, everyone that puts time in. Bodie was in the box for us tonight from Elite, so we were. It was a fun one tonight for sure, and we just came one spot short, but it was a good finish. It was a clean race, and it was a lot of fun.
24 one-thousandths of a second short of picking up his 4th win of the season, but a solid runner-up finish here tonight at Talladega is Ryan Lutz. Congratulations on a good run there, Ryan, and best of luck next week as you head to one of the longer races of the season at Charlotte.
Thanks, man.
And let's now go down to Victory Lane. He must be very familiar with the path to get to Victory Lane. He did it 1 year ago. He does it here tonight. That's John Whitendorf. Hey, John, it's Anthony and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yep.
Well, man, first off, congratulations on your first win of the season, but we highlighted you coming into this race, the defending winner at Talladega Super Speedway. Was there any pressure coming into tonight trying to see if you could match last year's success?
Not really. Honestly, didn't really remember that too much, but yeah, it's just about keeping the car clean and being there at the end.
And being there at the end is certainly what you did tonight. You were able to wheel around a very tough track tonight in order to get this win over the guy that you did battle with at the end of last week's race as well, Ryan Lutz, which is no easy feat either because both of you drivers have some pretty exceptionary skill when it comes to driving these tracks. But going forward, after tonight's win, you're going to inherit the points lead. Blaine Atkin didn't make the start of the race, so you will take the points lead. So not only a win, but the points lead going into next week's race. How does that feel, knowing that you've got that going for you as the season goes on?
Yeah, I mean, it's good right now. We'll see how long that lasts and keep on going.
John, obviously, we're going to some tough tracks here upcoming. We got the longest race of the season at Charlotte next week. We're even going to be going to tracks that weren't even on the schedule last season, like Sonoma and Eldora. As Anthony mentioned, you've got the points lead. So is it about trying to find Victory Lane more here down the home stretch, or is it more about consistency for you?
It's always about consistency. I mean, we got Sonoma. That'll be probably pretty good for me, and we'll see what happens.
Well, John, congratulations on your victory here tonight. Back-to-back wins at Talladega Super Speedway. Quite a feat to be able to pull off with how these cars slip and slide around as we observed here tonight in this 80-lapper. Well, actually, 82-lapper if you count in the overtime green-white checkered. But congratulations. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Oh, just thank you guys for putting us on, and Chris and everybody else out there tonight. It was fun.
That's John Whitendorf. First win of the season's a big one. Not only does he put a 1 in the win column, but he jumps to the top of the point standings heading to Charlotte next week. Congratulations, John, and best of luck at Charlotte next week.
Thank you.
And that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight from the high banks of Talladega Super Speedway. And Anthony, we precursed it with what we saw at Daytona earlier on in the season opener. We knew these cars were going to be a handful to drive. I'm not sure we knew the half of it with how I don't think there was a single car in the field that didn't experience facing 45 degrees towards the infield at some point. But we also know that the super speedways are very well known for photo finishes. Did not disappoint tonight.
Not at all. We got kind of what everyone paid for tonight was a high caliber race, a lot of lead changes, a lot of drama that happened throughout the race. And then at the end of it, we got a 3-wide finish, which the outside line prevails this time around. And the 33 car sits in victory lane, a happy man, knowing that he's not only got this win, but taking the points lead. This season is racking up to be kind of the one of the flagship seasons that we've seen in the G-Force family of series. And I'm excited for the points battle going forward, and we got some pretty tough tracks on the docket so far. And if they're anything like Talladega, they're going to be just as good because we got Daytona and Talladega again this season. So we're going to be coming back to some more of this racing.
Absolutely. Talladega came up just 4 1,000th short of tying last week's photo finish between Whitendorf and Ryan Lutz, but it also gave us 3 drivers in the conversation for the victory here tonight as opposed to the 2 last week. Looking ahead to next week, Anthony, 200 laps from day to night transition at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It's the second time they're going to Charlotte. They were there last season with Christopher Morse Jr. going to victory lane, but you talked about drivers being exhausted at the conclusion of tonight's 80-lapper. I can only imagine the fatigue is going to set in next week's 200-lapper.
Longest race of the season, and it's going to be at one of the toughest tracks of the season for these cars, the thin high banks of Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it's the Legacy Edition of Charlotte, so it's going to have a few of the more traditional kinks that we've seen that old Charlotte has. A little bit of a dip in turn one, I believe, is where before the bit of a repave that they had, or resurface rather, that they had when they added the road course into it. So you're going to see some classic racing at the classic track, and with the classic cars, it's going to be 200 laps of endurance, and these drivers are going to settle in for that. But after that, go to the first road course of the season, Sonoma, to follow shortly after that. So a couple of races coming up that are going to test these drivers' fortitude.
Absolutely. Well, cannot wait until next week. Talladega, though, definitely playing its part into who possibly could be in the conversation for the championship when we get to the season finale at Atlanta Motor Speedway. But it's John Whitendorf, back-to-back victories in the last 2 seasons at Talladega Super Speedway, his first win of the season, and he'll carry the points lead into the World 300 at Charlotte next week. Anthony's been a great one here tonight at Talladega. A lot of heart-stopping moments, not only for the drivers on track, for us up here in the booth as well, but appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take some bear pills afterwards, but I feel fantastic. I can't wait for the next race, and I love doing this with you, Seth, and I can't wait to get the rest of the season done because I want to see who wins this championship. This is heating up to be one of the best championships I've seen in a long time.
Absolutely. It's going to get down to the very end, I do believe. A lot of drivers still in the conversation for that championship trophy. Thank you to all of you for tuning in to tonight's event here from Talladega. We hope that you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night as the Dark Horse IndyCar Series continue on their season, getting closer to their season finale in the Indy 500. And then Thursday night, we bring you on the NR side, the RTG Tally Challenge All-Star Open. Drivers' last opportunity to make their way into the All-Star race next Thursday night. But for Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in to our coverage here tonight for the G-Force Vintage 87 Series at Talladega Super Speedway. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.